Welcome back to another weekly roundup of cloud gaming news brought to you by yours truly. Remember, if you want to stay up to date with all the latest in cloud gaming, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next video. And of course, if you enjoy the content, give the video a like, helps the channel out a lot. But for now, let's get into this week's cloud gaming news. Starting things off with Stadia hitting the headlines a couple of times this week, not all for the best reasons. First, in their regularly scheduled blog post, we got an update to 3 games coming to Stadia and zero reassurance to the community following the first-party studio closure last week. Just quickly, in that blog post, we got an additional game coming to Stadia Pro with Little Nightmares 2, which was a nice addition after a lighter Pro Games month this month. And we also got Pikuniku, which has been added this week and is available at a sale price. And finally, in that blog post, it does look like Stadia is determined to keep adding to its list of completely free-to-play games, which is something we like to see. This week, they have added Crayta to that list. As I said, none of that really reassures the user base and seems like the same old Stadia, sticking their head in the sand and hoping the bad news just goes away. But following that, we got a second unscheduled blog post promising to bring over 100 third-party games to Stadia in 2021. The blog post reads, "We're thrilled to continue bringing great games from some of the best developers for our players to experience within the Stadia store. More than 100 games will be added to the Stadia store for our players in 2021 to share, experience, and play with friends." Okay, so yeah, this is good. This is a roadmap of sorts, which is what we've been asking for a long time. However, of these 100 titles they're planning to add in 2021, for now Stadia has only highlighted the names and some of the release dates for 9 out of 100, one of which we already knew about. So just quickly, those 9 are Shantae Half Genie Hero Unlimited Edition, coming on February 23rd, Shantae's Risky Revenge Director's Cut, also coming on February 23rd, It Came From Space and Ate Our Brains, coming on March 2nd, FIFA 21, of course the one we already knew about from last week, arriving on March 17th, Keys and the Wild Masks, coming on March 26th, Judgment coming on April 23rd, and free with release dates yet to be confirmed, we have Killer Queen Black, Street Power Football, and Hellpoint. Now personally, I'm not in marketing, but roadmaps aren't something you can just spit out in a week, especially with all of the legal agreements for adding 100 titles to a platform. So I've got to guess all of this information was readily available last week when they dropped the news of the first-party studio closure and could have seriously softened that blow and been a great counter to the bad news. Like, yes, we won't be making our own games, but we're still bringing lots of third-party titles. On another note, I know this is only 9 of the over 100 games they're planning to add, but dear God, I hope this wasn't the cream of the crop. This list is far from a flex. 4 out of the 9 are 2D platformers, and I don't think anyone's falling over themselves to play It Came From Space and Ate Our Brains, released in 2015 and currently available on Steam for £3. And finally, Stadia made headlines just one more time this week, and yep, this one was not good reasons. This week, the Terraria co-creator Andrew Spinks took to Twitter to announce that the Stadia version of Terraria is officially being cancelled after his Google account was disabled. This started with Terraria's studio, Relogic, having its YouTube channel taken down for allegedly breaking YouTube terms of service, despite not posting any new content in months. And to add insult to injury, Spinks' personal email was associated with that YouTube channel, which resulted in his entire account being disabled, including losing access to thousands of dollars of apps on Google Play, as well as access to his own Google Drive and Gmail account. After 3 weeks of trying to resolve this with Google, giving him, quote, the runaround, Spinks went to Twitter to say, "I can take this no other way than you deciding to burn this bridge. Consider it burned. Terraria for Google Stadia is cancelled. I will not be involved in a corporation that values their customers and partners so little. Doing business with you is a liability." In isolation, this doesn't seem like a massive deal, but timing is everything, and you bundle this in with the recent controversies, and it gives off this reputation which becomes very difficult to move forward from. Of course, as always, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on any of the Stadia stories this week. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Which brings us nicely onto cloud gaming's current golden child, GeForce Now. Last week we talked about the 30 titles GeForce Now will be adding to the service in February, with 13 of those titles already being added. But despite those numbers, GeForce Now has still managed to add another 12 new games this week, which as always I'll throw up on the screen here. This really does demonstrate how quickly things are moving for GeForce Now if they have 12 titles which last week they were unable to confirm, and within the space of a week, all of these developers have chosen to opt their games into the service. GeForce Now also confirmed this week that Outriders, the upcoming co-op third-person shooter, will be getting a free demo on GeForce Now, arriving on February 25th, with the full game being supported on GeForce Now at release on April 1st. And let's wrap things up this week with some Shadow news. Starting off with the bad news, and Apple have struck again in their continued fight against cloud gaming by once again removing the Shadow app from the Apple App Store. This is not the first time this has happened, with Apple removing the app in March last year for breaching their terms of service around cloud gaming. Shadow were able to overcome this by removing features from the iOS version of the app, like the quick launch game screen, which made it fall into the category of cloud gaming, and instead classify it as a generic remote desktop application, which just happened to allow you to play games. In a recent update, Shadow said, "During the review of our most recent app update, Apple's team rejected and removed the Shadow iOS, iPadOS, and tvOS apps from the App Store. As it stands, the apps are no longer available for download. We are currently in discussion with Apple's team to understand more and get the apps reinstated on the App Store as soon as possible. Members who have already downloaded the app on their devices will still have full functionality and access to the apps. Unfortunately, we won't be able to update them for the time being, so the experience may become degraded over time." So just to clarify, this impacts iOS, iPads, tvOS, but not Mac OS. This news doesn't impact people who already have the apps installed. They'll still be able to use the Shadow app as normal, but new users won't be able to gain access to the apps, and the apps won't receive some of the updates and good stuff we've talked about in the recent Shadow roadmap videos. Speaking of which, this week we got another Shadow news live stream with updates on some of those features on the roadmap and a few extras. First, for anyone who's tried to log on during a particularly busy period, although there is a queuing system in place that ensures you can get in, a new UI has been developed which will actually show you your place in that queue. This is currently deployed in the Amsterdam data centers with plans to roll it out to others soon. Next, we previously discussed dynamic shutdown, where if your session was left idle but your data center wasn't particularly busy, it would be kept live for longer than the current 30-minute cap. The update on this is it has now been deployed to the Paris data center with plans to deploy it to Amsterdam next, followed by the US. We also got a preview of the dual monitor UI working in alpha. Where it is in alpha, it is currently available for you to try out right now if you do have two screens. Currently, the plans are to release it into beta sometime in March, with production sometime in April. It looks like even in its alpha state, currently it's been working with two monitors with different resolutions, which is the case with a lot of streamers. You have kind of your main 4K high refresh rate monitor, which is used for gaming, and then off to the side you may have a 1440 or just 1080p used for monitoring chat. They also mentioned dual screen has been working on the iOS version, so you can even connect an external monitor to an iPad and use a setup in that way. Of course, that's if you've already got the iPad app installed. From the last time we talked about the roadmap, you'll remember I was particularly excited about Shadow running on the Raspberry Pi, a concept that would basically allow you to build your own Shadow Ghost. This is one that's outside of the Q1 roadmap, but it's something that is in development, but we got an update to say there is an internal working version of Shadow running on a Raspberry Pi 4. However, performance improvements are still needed as it's not currently getting 60 frames per second. Next, this one was just a gentle reminder. With the explosion of Bitcoin and Dogecoin, we're reminded that crypto mining is against Shadow's terms of service. It takes up resources and available slots for people who actually want to, play games, and they will be cracking down on it. In the past few weeks, this has been impacting the Chicago and Texas data centers, so if anyone using them has noticed a reduction in performance, that'll be why. The hardware in Shadow data centers is not meant for mining. The data centers can't handle the amount of heat generated from mining, and they will catch fire.
I said, oh man, she said, oh man, the building is on fire.
Just don't do it. Just as a side note, it was noted that JB, the CTO of Shadow, is still investigating new hardware specifications. Currently, he's stated that he is a fan of AMD CPUs in combination with NVIDIA GPUs for its video encoding performance, which is very important for Shadow. During the live stream, he actually had a 3070 on the desk next to him. Like everything else we've talked about today, let me know your thoughts on Apple removing the Shadow iOS app and any of the updates from the Shadow news. But that's it from me this week. So of course, if you enjoyed the video, you found it somewhat helpful, a like rating would be appreciated. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next video. Hope everyone's staying safe out there. And as always, I shall see you in the next one.